The idea of making robots more like people has been around since before robots were invented. In Karel Capek's play R.U.R, the robots were just like people. Capek even came up with the name. But do we really need robots that look like people? Where do androids work, and why don't they feel anything? We'll talk about the pros and cons of humanoid robots with anthropomorphic mechanisms. Specialized robots for putting cars together, moving cargo, and running other programs are much better at their jobs than people, but they can't do anything else. If we want the most flexible robot, it needs to be at home in human environments with human tools, which means it needs to be like a person. The robot vacuum can't take the cup off the shelf, and the robot welder can't tell the robot to go to the library. The history of humanoid robots. In 1927, 7 years after the play R.U.R, the American Westinghouse Electric Company released Mr. Herbert Televox, a robot that could receive signals over the phone and run its own software. The designer said that the TV box could turn on the stove or check the status of the lights in the house. Televox was more than just a robot in some ways. He was part of a smart home. The human-like parts of Televox were just for decoration. Human-like robots. 10 years later, the Electro robot made its debut in the United States. It could do 26 different things, including walking. It could be run by voice. It didn't respond to words, but to the number of words it heard. 2 different words made Electro move. 3 made it stop, and any 4 syllables put it back where it started. The robot's mouth had a second motor that helped it blow up balloons and smoke? Since then, humanoid robots have mostly been used for entertainment. The first humanoid robot that could move things wasn't made until 1970. The Wabot 1 from Waseda University made its debut in Japan. It could talk in Japanese, figure out how far away things were, choose which way to move, and hold things in its hand. What's wrong with robots that look like people? Since more than 90 years ago, Mr. Televox has been around. During this time, technology's made a lot of progress, but robots that look like people are still mostly used for entertainment or information. In recent years, Hanson Robotics' Sophia has become one of the most well-known robots. She can show up to 60 different feelings, recognize speech, and come up with answers based on her own experiences and information from the internet. Sophia is just a project to show what can be done and to get the word out. Even though the robot is a typical chatbot with very different facial expressions, experts agree that Sophia doesn't know anything really useful. Sophia is a sensitive robot, but the cover on the back of her head that's see-through is scary. International Telecommunication Union, or ITU, Toshiba's robot consultant Aiko Chihiro has a more traditional look and a smaller range of facial expressions that are more realistic. Aiko came out in 2014 and quickly became a big deal. 6 months later, she worked as a consultant for a few days in a Tokyo shopping center. Thanks to 43 motor devices, Chihiro can move her eyes, head, and hands. The robot can hear your voice and respond with an exact copy in either Japanese or English. Toshiba calls Aiko a robot that interacts with people, or a communication robot. Developers plan to use these robot consultants in the service and medical industries to keep an eye on clients and talk to them, but this won't happen anytime soon. Aiko can't walk, so she can only work at a stationary help desk. There are many other less well-known humanoid robots that are just as interesting. Actroid Sit can look into the other person's eyes and touch them while they talk. Harmony was the first sex robot that could hold a conversation about savory topics. But at this point in the development of technology, they're all just expensive fixed ways to talk. Scientists, on the other hand, dream about rescue robots that take trash, robots that explore harsh environments with tools, and assistant robots that do hard work. A universal anthropomorphic robot is a very complicated mix of musculoskeletal systems, mechanical limbs, voice recognition systems, space, and neural networks that can process and understand its surroundings as well as spoken commands. Separately, these areas have made small steps forward. So, even though modern robots can talk as well as voice assistants like Siri, the conversation between a person and a machine is very different from a conversation between two people. Straight walking on 2 legs has also come a long way in the last 30 years. Compare how slowly the Honda EO and the Atlas Jog moved to see what I mean. Atlas, on the other hand, got equipment that weighed 80 kilograms and was about 180 centimeters tall to help him move. What does this robot, which might be the most amazing one ever made, do? For now, you should only carry 5-kilogram boxes. Think about the robot's head. It has a rotating LiDAR that scans the area around it to make a three-dimensional map of the world. This lets the robot respond as precisely as possible to obstacles by going around or over them. The brain of the robot is the hardest part. Machines can respond to people and objects in the right way, avoid danger, talk to each other, and figure out what people want from them. Modern humanoid robots, on the other hand, are about as independent as a 2-year-old child. They can only pick up a cube or open a door. They can't do more complicated things. If you use the most advanced parts to make an anthropomorphic robot, you'll end up with a bad, ineffective, and useless thing that will cost the universe. For example, each Honda Asimo, a small robot that can walk upstairs and kick a ball, costs $1 million but can be rented for $150,000 per month. Sadly, the conclusion is clear. Robots that look like people are still just specialized machines. Skin, eyes, and hair aren't necessary for the robot to work. They're just there for decoration and to make the mechanism look better. Most humanoid robots don't have much more than a skeleton. See the cases of the Russian Fedor, Atlas from Boston Dynamics, or Honda Asimo. The skinless frame design makes it easier to get to parts, speeds up development by getting rid of fake faces, and keeps the robot from having a problem with an ominous valley. This idea is about how things that look and act like people can make people feel disgusted because they aren't similar enough to them. The effect gets its name from the failure shown on the graph in the Masahiro Mori study. In 1978, he did a survey that showed that after a certain point, the more a robot looks like a person, the less people like it. At the moment, this psychological mechanism isn't understood by most people. People think that they see the other person's outward deviations from some kind of normalcy without knowing it. A graph from Masahiro Mori's study that shows how people feel about the things made by people based on how much they look like people. Wikimedia Commons is the source. At a certain level of realism, the brain thinks that there's a living person in front of the thing, but then we see strange hand movements, dead facial expressions, and alien speech, which causes cognitive dissonance that shows up as fear and anger. We don't understand what's in front of us because the robot looks like a person, which makes us feel threatened. Functionally, any android loses to any specialized robot or person. Even though robotics has been around for a long time, the dream of a universal assistant is still not possible. Will Smith's meeting with the robot Sophia was finally funny. With robots, the hitch method doesn't work very well. Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for more.